Where did Dennis go? He disappeared.
He's here.
All right, you are recording.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Municipality of Anchorage Board of Adjustment meeting of February 14, 2022. It is shortly after 1 o'clock Anchorage time. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Guchow,
Here.
Mr. Diak,
Here.
Ms. Peace,
Here.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I should mention also that the deputy clerk is here, Jennifer Veneklassen, as is Barbara Jones, I think, although I cannot see her, and Dennis Wheeler. So, oh, there she is. There she is. I can hear everybody. I do not see Bob Stewart, so we need to kind of bear with us. The first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Jennifer sent the agenda, the proposed agenda around. Have we all had an opportunity to look at that?
Yes.
If so, are there any additions, deletions, changes that you wish to make? Anybody? Anybody? No? If there are no changes, the agenda will be followed, is approved, will be followed.
Baron, when did she send those out?
Friday.
Friday.
Friday. You didn't get it? Bob?
I was looking for it and I never found it.
Okay, all right. Well, it is a very short agenda. Basically, we are going to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, and then we are going to take a final look at the recommendations regarding the ordinance, the proposed ordinance. So that's basically what's on the agenda, Bob. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So let us go then to the minutes of the previous meeting, and that's the minutes of the meeting of February 9. Have we all had an opportunity to look at those minutes, those proposed minutes? Mr. Deep?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I would move to approve.
Okay. It's been moved. Nancy Pease, have you had a chance to look at those proposed minutes?
Yes.
And
Approved.
I take it you're going, do you have any changes, deletions, corrections?
No.
All right, but I take it you're going to second the motion to accept those minutes, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Stewart, any questions regarding the minutes of the previous meeting?
No.
Okay. Mr. Deek, anything you wish to add at this point, since you made the motion to approve the minutes?
No, I think it's concise and it is what we have discussed, so I am good with it.
Thank you. Ms. Pease?
Likewise, I'll second the echo, Mr. Diak. Very concise.
All right. Okay. All right. I think seeing no objections, the minutes are approved. Next item. We come to the meat of things, and that is to take a final look at our recommendations regarding the proposed ordinance that will change Chapter 2103-050, basically, as far as we are concerned. Dennis has, Mr. Wheeler redrafted things and sent them out. I hope we have all had an opportunity to look at his final draft. Just the way I would like to proceed is that we simply go through it page by page. I think that's probably the easiest way to proceed. And when we have done all of that, then we will simply make a motion to approve. Does that make sense? Is that agreeable, Mr. Deek?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's agreeable, and I really need to make sure that we're done at 2, by 2.
Oh, absolutely. My view of the matter is that we'll go down way before then.
Thank you.
Mr. Stewart, does that make sense to proceed in that fashion?
It does, but I've been looking for something from Jennifer and from Dennis, and I've never received them.
Oh, good Lord. Dennis, what can we do about that?
Can he send it to me again? I've been looking on my computer and on my phone and nothing.
Sure, I can share it again.
Would
Just
you?
give me a second here.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have reviewed things that Mr. Wheeler sent. I'm just concerned whether I reviewed the right thing, because what I reviewed on my screen had lots of helpful red and comments from Dennis Wheeler. What I printed out didn't have the red, and it seemed to differ. So I would like to make sure I have the right, I have comments on various copies, but I'd like to make sure I have the right copy in front of me.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
may I just mention that what I'm looking at is Friday, let's see, is it Friday? No, it looks like it's 7:37 Thursday is what I've been looking at.
All right.
And I have not seen anything newer than that.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, I printed something off this morning, and it is nice because I have a color printer down here. I'm in Seattle, and I have a color printer, and so it's shown up very nicely on my paper here. Anyway, how are we going to do this? Dennis, were you able to send another version to Mr. Stewart and Ms. Pease?
I think Miss P said she had it, right?
I did receive a copy that has red comments and then Mr. Wheeler's comments in the margin through the chair.
Yep.
But
good.
I don't know if that's what I was supposed to review or whether there was something else.
That was the only thing I said. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
I believe, Ms. Pease, that is what you were supposed to take a look at.
Okay, great.
All right. So, Mr. Stewart, are we now singing off the same sheet of music here?
Hang on, I'm opening it right now.
And Mr. Chairman, I can certainly screen share the document if that helps.
That might be good. That would help us keep all on the same page.
I think
Through the chair.
so.
No, I had the old one that we addressed at the last meeting with the red in it, but I don't have a change to that.
It's what I just sent you is the most recent. It's what I sent on Thursday night, but I'll screen
Okay.
share it.
All right. I got it. Okay.
Great.
All right. I'm with you now. I've got it.
All right. Oh, there it is. Okay, very good. Can we all see it?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Good. All right, Paula, would you please sit down? Step back. Paula, sit down. I'm very sorry. What we have on the screen right now is the first page. Are there any changes, deletions, anything? Let's go around. Mr. Deek, do you have anything regarding the first page?
No, this is consistent with what we talked about.
Thank you. Ms. Pease,
Likewise, no changes.
Mr. Stewart.
I'm okay with it. It looks good.
Okay, and I have no changes regarding that page. Let's turn to page.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
sorry, I do have a change on page 1.
okay.
And Dennis, did
Line.
you?
What line?
Well, actually, it's at line 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41.
Okay, tell us what you wish to have changed?
Okay, so my specific edits don't probably make as much difference, Mr. Chair. It's the concept that needs to change. So later in the ordinance, it states that the planning director shall provide the notice of appeal, because we've had the notice of appeal filed with the planning director, and the record, as well as the notice of intent to file a brief, and all of those go to Assembly Council. So that's the concept. So we just missed that here, and Dennis asked me for my notes, and I apologize, I did not get them to him before he finished this. So that's one concept. And then the second concept is that there's a fee for filing a notice of intent to appeal. And the third part is, remember, we want them to file a certificate of service, or proof of service is probably the correct word, so that the clerk's office or planning or Assembly Council doesn't have to serve. So I guess before I talk about any specific edits, did I understand those concepts correctly?
Dennis, would you address this very briefly, please?
Sure, I'm showing now Barbara's suggested edits. If you could see that, you can see hers in purple here on the screen.
Yes.
Okay, so I think it's fine to switch it to the planning director for purposes of where the notice of intent will go. I'm not sure about the required fee and deposit. Barbara mentioned in her notes that there's a fee somewhere. It wasn't in this code. I went back to the original code. It's not in there that the appellee pays a fee, but maybe it's somewhere else in code. So Barbara, I don't know where that came from. And then the deposit, I don't know that they would pay a deposit. So I didn't have a chance to look those things up because I didn't get a chance to look at Barbara's notes over the weekend.
So where are we right now regarding page 1?
I think planning director change is fine. The proof of service is fine.
Okay, all right.
We could
What
leave
you're
open the
looking
question
at
of
is
fee and
one-
deposit.
Just 1 second.
Could we say pay any required fee and deposit? And if there isn't one, we'll take it out. And if there is, we'll leave it in. I'll try and find it.
Well, wait a minute. You want to change on line 38, Assembly Council's office to planning director?
Correct.
Dennis, is that
Yes, that's fine.
your understanding? All right.
Yes.
Are we all on board with that, Ms. Pease?
I'm a little, Mr. Chair, I'm a little perplexed. I'm not quite sure I understand. I thought that we were trying to have the Assembly Council's office as the center point. So a brief explanation of why the planning director is being brought in at this early stage would be helpful.
Mr. Wheeler, briefly.
I guess I understood that Barbara wanted to put the planning director of the planning department on notice that the appellee was going to be filing a brief. I guess to Nancy's point, there is a question about this because the filing of the appeal happens. Let's scroll down. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. Because it's after, let's see.
If you turn to
Yes. So the notice of appeal is filed with the planning director, and the process is still in flux in terms of preparing the record and the transcript and so on. And while that's happening, the appellee has 10 days to file their notice. Probably should also go to the planning director so that once that package is entirely assembled, the notices, the record, transcript, all that stuff then goes over to Assembly Council. So I'm okay with line 38 saying planning director instead of assembly council's office.
Okay. Any further comment, Mr. D?
I'm thinking here, but I'm trying to track this. So, so this is still addressing the planning director because we are at that phase. And they have to still do all the work to compile the record. So that's why we have it here. And then the assembly council will deal with it afterwards. That's why you recommended it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Peace, are you okay with that?
Yes, thank you. I am fine with it.
Yeah,
Okay,
then I'm
Mr.
good too.
Stewart.
Yeah. Thank you, Barbara.
Mr. Stewart? Hello, hello?
I think I'm okay with that.
Okay,
It makes sense.
all right,
I think that's where we were at.
okay. Anybody else regarding this on page 1?
Service.
None? Can we then proceed to page 2? Dennis, would you,
Yes, I
Hold
just want to reconfirm, sorry, I want to reconfirm on line 39 on page 1 that we will put in pay any required fee and deposit, subject to confirmation by the municipal clerk and myself that that is a requirement somewhere else in the code, so it's a cross-reference for that. And then provide proof of service so that we know that the appellees have served the appellants their intent to file a brief when the time comes. So I'm good with those changes as well.
and all of that should go on that paragraph that starts on line 36, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any,
So now,
Yes.
sorry, go ahead.
anything else? We need to move on. Seeing none, I think we are okay with that. Okay, can we move to page 2? We'll see that that's section number 4 that talks about perfection of appeal. And little a has been deleted, and we are simply under B that starts with findings of fact and decision. We all see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Mr. Deek, do you have any?
Yeah, I'm seeing this is more consistent, again, it's consistent with what we talked about, that the planning department will take over this role. So I see that, and I'm good with that.
Good. Ms. Pease?
Yes, I'm fine with the language. I did have one question. Is there any, what is the provision for notice of record of findings of fact and decision? Is that something that when the planning director, or when the board or commission rather issues that becomes, what starts the clock? And how does the public know that the clock has started?
Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Chairman, in line 24, following approval of the written findings of fact and decision, any party of interest may within 20 days file an appeal. So my understanding is that the approval would be on the record at the meeting where they approve their written findings, that whatever the day that is, the
And
clock
that's what
starts.
gets- and that starts the clock running.
Correct.
Ms. Pease, does that make sense to you?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that makes sense. And then how does the appellant and the potential appellees know that the clock is running?
Mr. Wheeler?
So there's a presumption they're familiar with the code, but also the decision gets posted
Okay,
through their public portals.
okay. So as long as that's, yeah, as long as that's understood that you've got to follow the agendas of these commissions and boards, and that's what I was curious about. So it's up to the appellants and the appellees to be following the process. Okay.
And doesn't that require a timely posting?
Mr. Wheeler?
I don't believe this clock is dependent on the timely posting. It's based on the approval of the written findings.
Has nothing to do with posting, in other words.
Correct.
Okay, and one more question. We we entered the information on deposit and cost of the appeal and
We haven't-
or the appeal fee and the deposit. Now we're
We haven't
saying it
got
again
there
in this notice.
We haven't gotten there yet. It's further down on page 2.
Yeah, that's on line, that's part of that paragraph on starting on page or line 24.
Yes. Correct.
Are we duplicating?
No. Mr. Wheeler, are we duplicating?
No, sir. Mr. Stewart, I believe you're referring to what the appellee has to do if you're talking about the tie at page 1. That was about the appellee. This is about the appellant.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it.
All right. Are you okay with that, Mr. Stewart?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So we are fine then with paragraph 4. Well, it's A, I gather, or whatever paragraph 4 is. And we now come to B, notice of appeal. And that has 3 little subsections there. Would we quickly address those, please? Mr. Deek.
It's fine.
Okay. Ms. Pease.
Likewise, it's fine.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart.
Okay.
Ms. Jones. Anything else you wish to add regarding the that portion on page 2?
Mr. Chair, I sent a question to Mr. Wheeler. I think that one of the things that the board has done in this ordinance that I think is really important is triggering due dates by requiring the parties to serve the other parties. To make sure, because the item can be dismissed if that certificate is service isn't there. So I asked Dennis if in B(i), if it needs to be clarified so that it includes proof of service instead of certificate of service. And I know that's kind of a technical legal question. I just want to make sure that it's super clear to the public. You don't tell us that you served it, you're out. And Dennis, that's just a question I have.
Dennis, would you address that, please?
Yes, through the chair. I think for me, the value of changing this to proof of service is might be easier for people to understand. So I'm okay with changing certificate to proof wherever it occurs.
Where do you see that on page 2? Give me the
Line,
lines.
line
36.
36. I've highlighted it here. If the screen share is still working.
So you want to change certificate to proof of service?
Yes, that's her request.
How do we feel about that, Mr. Deek?
Yeah, well, it's fine by me. I mean, it definitely is for the layman. It's a bit more clear of what it tries to do.
Okay. Ms. Pease?
I'm fine with the change to proof.
Yes. Proof of service instead of certificate of service. Do you see that?
Yes.
On line 37?
Yes,
Are you okay with that?
yes, I am.
Okay. Mr. Stewart?
Can proof of service be misconstrued? Is there a format for either the proof or the certificate that that's on the city's website?
Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Chairman, later in this ordinance, we provide an example that the parties can use. So it should be pretty easy for them
Okay.
to figure.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Mr. Stewart?
Yep, that's good.
All right. Do we have anything else regarding the provisions on page 2? I, double I, and triple I. Anything further, Mr. D?
No, no further.
Pease? Ms. Pease?
Fine with
Anything
me?
further? Okay.
No.
Mr. Stewart?
Nothing further.
Ms. Jones?
Nothing
Nothing
further.
further?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Dennis? Anything
I'm good.
else?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, then let's turn to page 3. And what I see there is the only change is on line 6. Is that correct, Mr. Wheeler?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It seems self-explanatory, I must confess. Mr. Deek?
Yeah, that was Nancy's sketch, so yes, and actually I'm seeing it on line 5, but the changing to mean what it means, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Pease?
Fine with it.
Mr. Stewart?
I'm okay with it.
Ms. Jones?
I'm
Are you
fine
okay
with
with
it.
that?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler, anything else?
No, sir.
All right. So we are fine with the provisions on page 3. Let's go to page 4. And what I see there is on line 25. Mr. Wheeler, would you just address that very briefly?
Sure. That change just makes it clear that it applies to both boards and commissions under Title 21. And then the change on line 34 is to make sure that people understand that the filing is not only the notices or the brief, but it's also the fees and costs associated with that. The items in 4B 1 through 3, just to make that clear.
Thank you. Mr. Deek, are you?
Yes, that's consistent with what we talked about. Yes, I'm good with it.
Thank you. Ms. Pease?
Mr. Chair, I do find this a little bit confusing from a grammar standpoint, I guess. It seems to me that upon timely filing, and then the subject of the sentence is the planning director. And it's not the planning director who's doing the filing, so I wondered if we should put in upon appellant's timely filing.
Of an appeal to the Board of Adjustment. Planning. No,
Yes,
no,
sir.
no. The planning director is the one that assembles the appeal record. That's the sentence.
Right, but the planning director's not, I guess maybe I don't understand the legal use of the word filing. It seemed to me that it's the appellant that's filing the appeal, but maybe
Yeah.
if it's just a clerical action, then it's the planning director who's doing it.
No. Mr.
Well, then-
Wheeler, would you address that, please?
I think what she's suggesting would be something like this. If you put in by an appellant, then it'd be clear that the filing is made by the appellant, then the planning director shall assemble an appeal record. I mean, we could certainly add that if that helps.
Thank you. That was what,
Nancy, would that help you?
yes.
Okay, so in line 34, upon timely filing of an appeal by the appellant,
Yes.
upon timely filing by the appellant of an appeal. Dennis, help us out.
Well, I did it this way, but I'm open to flipping it around a little bit.
So what are you suggesting? Give us the wording.
Oh, can you not see my screen? I'm sorry.
No, it's too small.
Oh, okay. I suggested upon timely filing by an appellant of an appeal. That's the way I put it.
Okay. Ms. Pease, is that okay?
Yes, thank you. That's good.
Mr. Teague, is that all right?
Oh, yeah, it's totally all right.
It's okay with
Mr.
me
Stewart.
too. I'm good with it.
Okay. Ms. Jones? She's gone.
I think it's fine. I was thinking, I don't know if it would help or not if you just said after timely filing of an appeal. It still doesn't say by the appellant, so I'm not sure it's helpful or not.
Are we okay with all the changes now on lines 34 through the end of that page? Mr. Deek, anything further?
Yeah, I would like to not do the wordsmithing, so I understand what it says, so I'm good with it.
Thank you. Ms. Pease?
Fine.
Mr. Stewart?
I'm good with it.
Thank you. All right, next page. Page 5. Mr. Wheeler, would you address the changes on page 5, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This basically accomplishes one of our goals of making the appellant and the appellee take care of serving each other with their documentation. That's the primary driver of these changes here in paragraph C.
Okay. Mr. Deek, are you okay with those changes, or do you wish to address those?
No, I think we got the assembly council right, and then with any notice, as my understanding that this is consistent with what we try to achieve here.
Okay. Ms. Pease?
I'm fine with the language. There's some typos there, and I believe in line 21. I believe it should say, if a paper copy, comma, pay the copying cost, and then delete that last bracket that's in pink.
Hold it. Following brief and
It says
no
brief,
comma?
and if a paper copy, I believe it should be pay, an active verb instead of a past tense.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I agree. The planning director is going to serve the record on appellees who have filed a notice and paid the cost. So it's past tense.
Oh, okay, all right,
Are you okay with that?
yes,
All right. Mr. Stewart?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Ms. Jones?
Yes, it's good.
Thank you. All right. Can we then proceed to the next page, please? And Mr. Wheeler, we are now on page 6. Mr. Wheeler, would you please address the changes on page 6?
Yes, at line 33, we require the appellant to file a brief because we got rid of all of that notion of making attachments to the notice back at the beginning. So they file a simple notice form, then they have to file a brief. They have to file it with the Assembly Counsel's office. If they don't, the Assembly Counsel's office will dismiss the appeal.
Okay.
And the appellant, lines 43 through 45, must serve any appellee and the planning director.
Okay. Mr. Deek, are you okay with that?
Yeah, this is my recollection as well.
Okay. Ms. Pease?
yes,
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
That's what we agreed to. That's
Okay.
good.
Any further comment, Mr. Stewart? No?
No,
Okay. Ms. Pease, do you have anything you wish to add?
yeah, I don't know, I don't want to hold things up with typos and things like that, but appellant's capitalized on line
I don't
43.
think it is capitalized on line 43.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good now.
Yeah, I just changed it.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Jones, anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if Mr. Wheeler could make the conforming amendment he asked earlier so that it says on line 44, provide proof of service instead of shall serve.
So appellant shall provide proof of service
Maybe it's both.
on. Appellant shall provide proof of service on any appellee and the planning director. Is that what you're saying? Ms. Jones?
I
Mr.
think-
Wheeler, is that what I'm saying?
Dennis?
What do you think of this? Appellant shall serve and provide proof of service of the brief on any appellee and the planning director?
Yes, that's exactly what we want.
Mr. Deek, are you okay with that?
I accept that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pease?
Yes,
Mr. Stewart?
that's good. It takes out any ambiguity.
Thank you. All right, and I'm good with it also. Okay, done. Page 7. Mr. Wheeler, would you address the changes on page 7, please?
Okay, so starting at line 11, we are identifying the Assembly Counsel's office where the appellee brief needs to be filed. Then let's see here. We again require the appellee to provide service instead of having the municipal clerk or the Assembly Counsel's office do that service on the appellant. And then we cleaned up that there can be a staff brief, line 26, and that also needs to go to the Assembly Counsel's office. And again, the reply brief, line 36, needs to go to the Assembly Council's office.
Okay.
Said the school clerk.
I have one change in line 11. It says intent to file a brief. May file. A brief, right?
Correct.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, brief is on line 15. It's kind of orphaned there.
Oh, you are right. No, within 15 days of service. Oh, brief, there you see it.
brief.
Okay, on line 14. Yes. Thank you. Okay. So I'm good with those changes. Mr. Deek, anything you wish
Yes,
to add?
it's no additions. It's good. It's just kind of lost with the shuffle here, but yeah, it's there.
Okay, Ms. Pease, thank you for pointing it out, by the way.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, do we need again to say proof of service, or is proof of service assumed to be on the same day as service?
Dennis?
Madam Clerk Jones is suggesting we include the proof of service at lines, basically an insert, I think around lines 20 or so. It would say concurrent with filing of the brief, appellee shall provide proof of service of the brief on any appellant and the planning director. I'm going to copy that over. I like that.
Okay.
Deadline, it would go right. Let me just insert this here so you can see it in context.
Mr. Chair, it was Mr. Wheeler's language from the previous section on the brief of appellant, and I just suggested copying it here.
Okay. So what is the final wording there? Dennis, would you,
Sure. In the highlighted yellow, start at line 20. Concurrent with filing of the brief, comma, appellee shall provide proof of service of the brief on any appellant and the planning director, period.
okay. Mr. Deek, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Ms. Pease?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
That's good.
And I'm okay with it also. Barbara, anything else regarding that?
I think you made the change up on the top so that it should read concurrent with filing of the brief, appellant shall serve and provide proof of service.
Where would you add that?
Sorry.
What line?
Right
Line
here.
20.
Yep.
I thought we just did that.
Yeah, but the serve was missing.
Okay.
I just added serve and
Yes.
to
Serve
lines
and
20, 21.
Thank you. Mr.
provide
Deek,
proof of service.
Yeah, it is. I mean, certainly it's consistent with what we just did the previous page. It's fine by me.
okay. Ms. Pease,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
I think it's good.
okay, and I'm okay with it. Mr. Wheeler, do you understand what we're talking about?
Oh, yeah.
You're the one proposing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's there.
And
All right.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to help you out here. We're going to repeat that at line 42, it looks like, to be consistent.
42.
Okay.
I'm just adding that in now so you can see it.
Well, that's on the reply brief. Okay.
Yes.
That should be
Okay.
appellant.
Yes. That makes sense. Mr. Deek, is that okay with you?
It certainly clarifies it. Won't save many trees.
Okay. Ms. Pease,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Jones?
Thank you very much. I think as Mr. Stewart said before, it's crystal clear now.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have anything else to add here to page 7?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering, do we want the planning director to provide proof of service of a staff brief on all appellants and appellees should the
Yes,
staff choose to file one?
I think we should.
I think
Where
I
can
think
we
we should
add
be
that?
I'm adding it at lines 35 right now.
D.
35.
Okay. Do we all see that? Mr. Deek, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Ms. Pease?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes, because they can file on their own volition. Needs to be in there.
Okay, thank you. I agree. Next, anything else regarding page 7? Seeing none, we now turn to page 8. Dennis, would you address those changes, please?
Sure. The page numbering is now going to be pushed a little bit, but on the screen here, it's little 4.
Yes.
References to the record should be designated by an R, blah, 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 dash R1, and then transcript T1. That's just including this example at lines 22 through 29.
Okay.
I'll just pause there.
So you're talking about little 4I.
Roman numeral 4? I don't know
Yes,
what we call that.
Roman numeral 4. Okay. Let's stop right there. Mr. Deek, are you okay with that?
Yeah, we
provision?
did discuss the Rs and the Ts, so I'm good with that.
Thank you. Ms. Pease,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes, we discussed this.
yes. Ms. Jones,
No comment.
thank you. I have no further comment, so we are okay with that. Then we come to the large paragraph starting on line 21. Dennis, would you address that very briefly, please?
Sure. This is where the Assembly Council takes over the obligation to get the packets done and out to the Board of Adjustment. At the same time, the municipal clerk is going to publish notice of the date of the Board of Adjustment meeting. And the clerk shall make packets available to the public upon request.
Okay. Mr. Deek, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that this is also consistent, and I see that the newspaper is now deleted, so yes.
Thank you. Ms. Pease?
Mr. Chair, my notes from our previous meeting showed that we were going to shorten that lead-in clause and just say following completion of the briefing, comma, and then continue with the assembly staff, the assembly council.
Dennis, would you address that briefly?
I think the municipal clerk has the same notes I can see on what she sent me Friday night. She's got a similar comment, so I think I do need to fix this.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Chair, sorry to jump in, but I recall, I don't have my notes here, but yes, I think that was something we talked about to simplify that.
Yes, I agree. Mr. Stewart?
I agree with Tomas.
Okay.
I think that's
Mr.
right.
Wheeler, have you had a chance to make that change?
Trying to do it right now.
Okay.
I think we would just get rid of this.
Yes.
Yes.
So we are saying following completion of the briefing instead of.
Briefing cycle, yeah.
Yeah, completion of the briefing cycle.
I'm just writing it down. Okay. All right. Anything else regarding that large paragraph, Mr. Deek?
Nope.
Ms. Pease?
No.
Thank you, by the way, for pointing this out, Nancy. I appreciate it. Mr. Stewart? Hello?
Yeah, I've got a question here. The Board of Adjustment shall set the date for consideration of the issues on appeal. The municipal clerk shall publish notice of the date. Should we be clarifying that as is that date or the hearing date? Or just, is that good enough the way it is?
Dennis, what's your thought?
I'm kind of a minimalist. I think it's okay because it says the Board of Adjustment, I can't speak. The Board of Adjustment shall set a date, and then it follows with the municipal clerk shall publish notice of the date. So I tie them together, but I can understand Mr. Stewart's point.
But I can see on the top, we say notice of hearing and we don't mention hearing. We just say date for consideration.
Ms.
I-
Pease, did you want to say something?
No, Mr. Chair, I agree with the idea that we should say notice of hearing instead of notice of consideration. That would be consistent with the beginning of the paragraph.
How about if we change consideration to hearing right here on line
Yes.
36?
Yes, that would do it. That would do it.
Which line are you talking about? Oh, line 36?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Barbara, do you have anything further? regarding this?
Not regarding this, Dennis has highlighted municipal clerk later in the paragraph that we should talk about.
Where are you? What line?
Line 40 on the
And-
online version.
So the question that I have about that is, so far the clerk's office has, not been involved. We're going to publish the notice of the date of your hearing, but we've never received a packet, an appeal packet. And so, maybe that's what we need to do is in line 29 and 30. If you want to say that Assembly Council shall prepare and distribute to the members of the Board of Adjustment and
And
municipal
the
clerk,
clerk's office.
yeah, then we can do it on the other end.
I think that makes sense. Dennis?
Yes, sir. I just added that in at line 33.
Okay.
And then I
Well,
think
Does
the
that,
clerk,
okay,
sorry, sir.
Barbara, does that satisfy your concern?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Mr. Deek, are you
Yes.
okay with that?
I'm good with it.
Ms. Pease
Yes,
and Mr. Stewart?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Anything else regarding that paragraph? Seeing none, let's move to the next paragraph, procedural changes. Dennis?
Yes, sir. There's no change from the prior draft. All we did here was just change the word application to motion on
Okay,
line 44.
okay, thank you. Mr. Deek,
Yes, it's good.
Ms. Pease,
yes,
Mr. Stewart,
It's okay.
and I'm okay with it as well. Barbara?
Yes, I'm okay too.
Good. All right. Now we come to paragraph 9, conduct of hearing. Dennis?
No changes from the previous version.
Okay. Mr. Deek?
No changes.
Thank you. Ms. Pease?
no changes.
Mr. Stewart?
I'm good with it.
Thank you, as am I. Then we can proceed to the next page, presumably. And we come to paragraph E, service. Dennis? Any?
So we added in E1, proof of service, to identify what needs to be in it to constitute proof of service. And then we included an example below that, starting at line 28, which we call the certificate of service. And it has some, as an example here of what would qualify as an acceptable certificate of service.
Okay. I must tell you, and maybe I'm a little behind here because my paging is different. I would like to go back to what is line, the previous paragraph, 9B.
Yeah,
9B. And
Right here.
that basically says, Board of Adjustment shall not hear argument, et cetera, et cetera. The Board of Adjustment shall consider only the material contained in the appeal packet. And don't we also have to observe the law? Only consider the material contained in the appeal packet and the law? No?
We do. I
So,
agree with you. That should be in there.
Okay. Dennis?
This is just a repeat of current code, so it's been this way for a long time. The only reason 9 is even included in this ordinance was because I changed the word meeting in 9A
Meeting, right.
to hearing. So 9B is current code and has been for some time. I don't think it's meant to say that you don't consider the law. It's really focused on not allowing the parties to introduce new
New
arguments or new evidence in the hearing.
Okay.
The hearing is
That's
really
fine.
your deliberation.
Okay, that's fine by me.
Okay.
Mr. Deek, what do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, I had no problem with this.
Okay, Ms. Pease?
It's fine if changing the word material to the evidence, if that would help. That's fine. Otherwise, just keep it as is.
Well, I think there's more than just evidence. There's transcripts and there's everything else. I think the material is broad enough that it covers it all.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Ms. Jones, anything you wish to add there?
No,
Thank you. Mr. Wheeler, anything further?
No.
And I have nothing further. Okay, I'm so sorry to be slow here. Come to service, Dennis, paragraph E.
It's, as I explained, it's just identifying what is a proof of service, what needs to be in it, and an example below it.
I think that's really good to have an example there. We discussed that last time around. Mr. Deek, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Ms. Pease?
Yes,
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
I'm good with it.
Okay. Barbara?
yes, Mr. Chair, I have asked Dennis if it would be helpful. So for on Dennis's copy, it would be line, where is he at right now? It's line 15 on the part that he's showing. And where it says the word party. And I'm a little bit worried about that because, pro se appellants or appellees don't know that party means appellants or appellees. And they're going to come to you and ask you to relax the rules because service doesn't apply to them because they weren't listed. So I'm just asking that. I understand it's overkill, but I'm letting you know why I'm concerned about that.
Dennis?
Yeah, I think she's asking for this phrasing I'm highlighting in yellow, where you call out appellant, appellee, or other party having responsibility for service.
Okay. In other words, just change the word party to appellant, appellees, or other party.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Deek, are you okay with that?
I'm totally okay with
Pease?
that. And, I'm not a lawyer. I was okay with that even before. So I take this one.
Thank you. Ms. Pease?
I'll echo Mr. Diak.
Mr. Stewart?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, all right. Let's then proceed to the next one. I'm looking at the time here because Mr. Deek is about to leave here. Dennis, would you just briefly address? I'm turning to page 10, and there's simply added planning director. Are you there?
Yes, correct. That is true.
Okay. Anything else we have to address there? No?
No.
Okay. Mr. Deek? You okay?
Yes, yes, okay.
Please. Betty?
Yes,
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
I'm good with it.
Barbara?
I am good. I have no changes throughout the rest of the document.
Thank you very much. We then turn to page 12. Page 12.
Yes,
Dennis?
it's pushed.
Why did
Yeah,
you add that entire paragraph?
because there's no longer a requirement for a notice of intent to appeal,
Okay,
so it's
That
not
makes
necessary.
thank you. Mr. Deek?
Yeah, we discussed that, yes.
Okay, Ms. Pease?
fine with it.
Mr. Stewart?
It's as we agreed.
Thank you very much. And in looking at the rest, the only changes that I see is that the word planning director is included, and that is because we change things around that the planning director is initially responsible for assembling things. Dennis, do you have anything to add?
No, that's pretty much it. There were a couple of corrections where the old code improperly referenced the board instead of the commission, or the other way around, so I fixed those as well.
Okay.
That is it.
Thank you.
Until we
Anything
get,
further,
yep.
Mr. Deek?
Yeah, I agree with that. That was a consistent change to be changed, so I see them. And then we're gonna go to the end here, I believe. Is that right, Dennis?
Yeah, we had some additional suggestions at the very end.
Yes.
Oh, that's the motion business.
Correct. And the public meeting issue. And then case management for section 220.065, so that the Assembly Council had case management as one of their additional duties.
Tomas, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, we did talk about it, yes.
Okay. And are you okay with the way it is worded now? Tomas?
Yeah, it is basically just talking about fixing the assembly console and the municipal clerk like Dennis shows it, but yes.
Okay. Ms. Pease?
I'm fine with it. I did have one question and my numbering is different from yours. I don't have numbering, but under E, we're talking about the motions now.
Yes.
Okay,
Under E, there is a line that says, without referral to the chair or the board panel. Yeah, never mind. I see never mind. Now I see the reference. Okay, no
Yeah.
changes.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
I'm good with it.
Okay. And I'm Barbara?
A-okay, no changes to the end of the document from me.
Thank you so much. I have no further changes. Are we okay with all the changes that we have now discussed?
Yes,
Anything
Mr. Chair.
further you
Yes.
wish to add, Mr. Deek?
No changes. I'm okay with the changes we made.
Thank you. Ms. Pease?
Likewise.
Mr. Stewart?
Everything's okay from my standpoint.
Well, thank you so much. Do we need a motion? If so, I will entertain a motion that we approve all the changes that have been made and forward or direct. Who should forward this? Dennis, who will forward this?
Mr. Chairman, with the board's approval, I think we would have you sign off on a short resolution and attach this to it, and the clerk's office can send it, I think, back to planning.
Okay. So we do need a motion to approve the changes, and I will make that motion. And
Second.
Mr. Deek will second that. And by way of discussion, we have gone through it over, not just once, but at least twice. I think the changes that we have made are good, and I would hope that the assembly will consider positively what we have discussed here. So, Mr. Deek, anything further you wish to add by way of seconding?
By way of second, all I add is that I think we did really dig into this and got good suggestions. So I think it's a good end result at this point, and it's now going into someone else's hand to make it final. So I'm good with it.
Thank you. Ms. Pease?
I think we were very thorough.
All right. Mr. Stewart?
One thing, do we need to should we send a CC copy to the assembly attorney?
Dennis? Yes.
It's entirely discretionary with the board. It's certainly probably a nice courtesy to do that.
I think we should, yes. So the direction will be that the clerk will forward the original to is it the planning department, and serve a copy on the assembly council. Okay? Anything further? No?
That's it.
Jennifer,
Mr.
anything
Mr.
further?
Mr. Chair, I have a draft resolution. Could I circulate
Well,
that to
we
you?
are out of time. That's my problem.
Oh.
Okay. So, is it entirely different from what we have discussed here in the last 35 seconds?
No, the resolution says we approve the attached, but it usually has the member's signature. And if we needed signatures, I'd need to do that today.
I will sign it on behalf of the board. How's that?
All right, that's much better.
Okay. Jennifer, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair, can I make sure I understand the motion is to approve all the changes made and direct the clerk to forward to the planning department and assembly council?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gucha,
Yes.
Mr. Diak,
Yes.
Ms. Peace,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Thank you, and the motion is approved. So now, and we are out of time, but before we do anything further, This has been the swan song, so to speak, for Mr. Deek and Mr. Stewart. And on behalf of the board and on behalf of the clerk's office and Dennis Wheeler and everybody else who has come in contact with the two of you, I want to really seriously thank you for the service you have provided for a number of years. I can tell you that as the chair of this board, I have come to rely on both of you, and so I am sorry to see you leave. Having said that, thank you very much for your service. Thank you. And with that, are there any further comments that we wish to make? Mr. Deek, do you have anything further?
No.
Mr. Stewart?
I'm holding out hope and that our letters that we sent in to the mayor's office are going to have some fruit here to get Tomas back on.
Well, thank you. Ms. Pease, anything further?
Amen to that, and thank you.
All right. There's nothing else. And so in the interest of being timely, I think we need to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Dennis, you will provide a final